a very, very warm welcome to everyone. Croeso cynnes iawn ar brynhawn mor hyfryd yma yn Abertawe. The warmest of welcomes to you, joining us here at Swansea University. And in fact, I'm sitting at my desk on the Singleton campus. It's been a real joy today coming in. In fact, I've been on both campuses, or campi, I'm not quite sure of the plural, and joining in with some visitors who have come on a visit day. It's just nice to be starting to get back within, of course, the appropriate social distancing restraints, to be engaging directly with people or communicating, because that word is absolutely at the heart of our event today, the celebration of communication, and a very particular kind of communication by way of the sort of documentary films that are the subject matter of this research project, which has been so enormously successful. I'll return later a little more to outline the context of the project, but I would enormously like to extend a very, very warm welcome to the Cabinet Minister, who is also the aelod of the Senedd for Gower. And it's difficult to think of a more beautiful area at the moment than Gower. And we're very grateful that she's chosen to join us rather than perhaps join the very many people who will be heading off down to the wonderful Gower beaches this weekend. So thank you so very, very much, Minister, for joining us. Now, sometimes if people Google Rebecca Evans, they may end up in the Royal Opera House first, because of course there is another very famous Rebecca Evans from Wales, who is an opera singer. But there is also this very enormously important, committed, engaged and valuable member of our political community in Wales, a historian, I think, by academic background, but has had now a very thriving, successful and important series of roles in Welsh Government. Rebecca is currently the Minister not only for Finance, but also for local government. Quite a portfolio, actually. That's probably the wrong word, isn't it? It's portfolios with lots of S's on the end and an enormous responsibility. So it's been a particular joy and privilege for us in Swansea that Rebecca was willing to join not once, but twice with this fabulous project and to share her experiences so that they are on the record by way of this fabulous documentary series of her experiences around Brexit, her experiences currently, the experiences around COVID, and her role as a political leader within Wales during times of such challenges. This is a soft launch. There's nothing soft around the job that this Cabinet Minister and her colleagues have been doing over the course of the last months and years. And it gives me enormous pleasure to ask Rebecca Evans, our Cabinet Minister, our local political representative, to help this soft launch in celebrating this wonderful research project that she and so many others have been willing participants in engaging and contributing so valuably to.
Oh, well, thank you for such a lovely, lovely introduction. And as you say, I'm Rebecca Evans, the member of the Senedd for Gower. speaking to you this afternoon from sunny Mumbles, although you'll never guess it from my spare room. But it's such a pleasure to be with you. And as we've heard, one of my roles is to be the Cabinet Minister for Finance and Local Government. I've held the finance portfolio since 2018, but only just took on the local government responsibilities following the election in May, and I'm absolutely loving getting to grips with the new portfolio. So my role includes managing the Welsh Government's budget of more than £20 billion. It involves directing our tax policy, which I absolutely love. It's the most fascinating area. And if you'd have told me a few years ago that I would be absolutely fascinated by tax, then I wouldn't have believed you. But I've had such a privilege and pleasure to hold this role and learn so many interesting things. It's a learning experience every single day. Strategic investment is one of my other responsibilities, and that obviously will be extremely important as we move into the post-pandemic period, and also ensuring that local government has the support and resources that it needs to keep doing its incredible work supporting our communities. And I think we all recognise the incredible job that they've been doing over the course of the pandemic. My previous roles included farming and food. That was my first portfolio when I was the Deputy Minister. Social care and public health, and that was a really challenging portfolio even back in those days before we had a public health emergency to deal with. And housing and regeneration, which was a particular joy because that's another fascinating area where you can really make a difference to people's lives, knowing that good housing really does make all the difference to the quality of somebody's life and the opportunities that they end up being able to pursue. And the final role that I've held was the Trefnydd role, and that is the Welsh of the leader of the House role, essentially, which involves ensuring that the Welsh Government can get its business through the Senedd and its legislation through and get the votes through and the budget through and so on. So again, another challenging job when you have to be negotiating all of the time with other parties. But I think it's a really exciting job because it does mean that you always have to be on the lookout for common ground. And I think that this is one of the things that the documentary series challenges us to do, is to look for common ground and look for new ways of working together. So I think that that's really exciting. And it's been my great pleasure to contribute to two of the documentaries. And I know that my colleagues in government have also been able to do so as well. I know the First Minister was also really keen to support by doing interviews. I think his most recent one relates to a new project which the team is doing. I think that again is really exciting and shows just how well regarded this work is, that the First Minister is keen, even while leading us through the part of the pandemic we're in at the moment, to take the time to do this because he recognises why this work is so important. So the first time I spoke at one of the in one of the documentaries, it was about the impact of Brexit and how it was being felt by individuals, communities and businesses within my own constituency here in Gower, and also talked about the kind of mitigating measures that the Welsh Government was seeking to put in place to help move us forward from that. And then much more recently, I spoke about how digital transformation is going to be absolutely crucial in the post-pandemic recovery, both in terms of delivering modern public services to individuals, but also to growing an economy which can perform strongly in the modern world. So I know that's going to be an exciting piece of work as well. And I was really so keen to contribute to and support these documentaries because we're just living in such incredible times, and research-led documentary filmmaking can be a really powerful way to help us make sense of what's happening right now, but also to help us make the links across academia, across business, across those people who lead in communities and so on. So I think that there's a real value to this kind of work, and it can be a melting pot of ideas, really, when all of these different perspectives and experiences and knowledge collide. So I think the work is just so valuable. And of course, it will be really important evidence for people when they look back at what has been an absolutely incredible period in our history. So before we get on to the next part of the agenda, I did want to take this opportunity just to say a huge thank you and congratulations to everybody who's been involved in creating these really excellent documentaries. The awards that I know you're receiving just speak for themselves, and you've created something really special, really valuable, and you should just be so proud of the work that you've done. And I just want to say that I'm really grateful to have been able to play just a tiny part in that. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you so very much, Minister, for those very, very kind words. And there will be an opportunity a bit later on for Georgios and Nadia, who are the heart of delivering this project, to speak with us about their roles and their vision and how that's been delivered. I see that the logo on this is the Hillary Rodham Clinton School of Law. Sian, who you'll be hearing from later on, we must make sure that the logo in future reflects the new faculty of which we are all a part. And as you'll hear, Rebecca, in due course, Sian is the head of one of our new schools, the School of Culture and Communication. Again, we come back to that word, and Georgios, having been in the School of Management, is now in the School of Communication, but we're all within the same faculty. And if I can say, one of the great joys of the new restructuring we've been doing, Minister, in Swansea University, it'd be great to have a chance to have a chat around that, but has enabled me to meet up with these fantastic people and so many others that we see around the screen and in the community. It's been a real joy. So if we may please, the next part of the session is looking at what Georgios calls a teaser. So gives us a taste and a flavour of some of the documentary material, which extends over many hours in total, but the team have tried to just distill it. And you mentioned, I think, the First Minister contributing. In fact, my recollection is that we hear his voice very early on this teaser session, a voice we've, of course, all become very familiar with over the course of the last few months. And I'm sitting here seeing behind me, who would have thought? Here I am in my office. I'm not sure that this is an advertisement, but you know, this sort of thing is standard now, isn't it, in all of our lives? Let me put that out of the way and say, over to you guys, press the button, and let's have that soft launch of this wonderful teaser.
It is time for us to settle this question about Britain and Europe.
Brexit.
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 Brexit isn't easy.
And just because we're not part of the European Union doesn't mean we don't have to trade with European countries.
But it's such a big decision. It's the biggest decision we've had to make as a country for what, 40 years, 50 years?
I don't think that the initial impact of Brexit will be positive, but I think there are opportunities, and I think for regions like South Wales, with the potential strength that it has in semiconductor industries and things, really to focus on the global picture will ultimately be beneficial.
Wales is a European nation. Our language, our literature connect us to Europe for over 1,000 years.
Brexit is believed to be one of the biggest changes or challenges the UK is going to face in the coming years.
In modern times, Wales has done well out of our membership of the European Union.
I don't think either side were completely honest about what the other side was offering, and I don't think people were straight about what leaving would mean.
I've always believed in the European Union, in part because of the benefits that it brings to our economy and to employment prospects.
But I am quite willing to leave the European Union, provided that every person in my constituency, job is protected, their income is protected, their standard of living is protected.
I mean, as the Shadow Foreign Secretary, I'm really worried about the way in which Britain is losing its place in the world, seems to be being completely preoccupied with Brexit. We seem to have fallen down a big black hole called Brexit.
I suppose my comments as an economist would be on the economy. So if you've got a medical problem, you go and see a doctor. If you want to know about the economy, then you might talk to an economist.
Whereas there isn't complete agreement on the impact of Brexit on the UK economy, there seems to be a fairly general consensus that the impact will be negative in the short to medium term in terms of gross domestic product.
I've published work on Brexit, looking at constituency voting patterns and identifying those areas that have supported this.
The UK government has identified aerospace, automotive, chemicals, construction, life sciences and a number of others as vulnerable sectors.
I'm here to share a few thoughts about the ways that Brexit is going to affect communities in places like St David's and Pembrokeshire on the west coast of Wales. I think there's too much negativity, and if you get enough people saying something, then you get what's called the self-fulfilling prophecy.
We do believe that Wales can become a serious hub to be reckoned with, don't we? Yeah. When you look at what's happening in the universities, the emphasis now on innovation.
I still feel like a little bit more first-hand knowledge and insight into the good work that European money and European policies had done in Wales would have maybe switched the vote.
From a broad point of view, it adds to uncertainty. It potentially adds to administration, but at the moment it can't be the highest priority because we have other things that we need to do in the short term.
And a lot of our work involves face-to-face contact with with groups of disabled people and people working in that sector.
The CBI has predicted that every part of the country will be impacted by the significant economic fallout that is predicted to hit the UK due to Brexit.
Brexit, deal or no deal, will bring about huge changes in all aspects of the UK's activities, with the higher education sector expected to be heavily affected. Will this further divide the United Kingdom, or could it be the start of something better?
If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. But we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan city.
Well, China's coronavirus continues to spread. Authorities are saying the outbreak could peak in 10 days.
In the epicenter of a now global outbreak, the death toll has been rising every day.
The arrival of coronavirus in Wales has been expected. This morning, it was confirmed.
It's going to spread further, and I must level with you, level with the British public. More families, many more families, are going to lose loved ones before their time.
The health of the public is paramount. Together, we can do this.
On the 23rd of March, the United Kingdom went into full lockdown. People were no longer allowed to leave their homes except for emergencies and groceries. When outside, a strict 2-metre distance rule has been imposed for the security of the general public.
People have lost jobs,
People have lost opportunities. People are having to reevaluate what they thought they were going to be doing next year, the years after, as a result of the other impacts that coronavirus has had.
Just came to an end overnight, then our sort of business came to an end overnight.
Coronavirus has made people across the world think very differently about health and social care. And the reason why I add the social bit is that in fact what we know is those most vulnerable happen to sit in vulnerable parts of society. They tend to have demographics which make them more likely to have severe COVID.
In what's happened in 5 weeks, probably has caught up what was planned 5 years to take 5 years. So everything has grown at such a pace.
The data in hand suggests that this pandemic is probably the most serious economic crisis the Welsh economy has ever seen over the last few decades.
I want to thank everyone in Wales for the way in which each of us has dealt with these very challenging circumstances.
Pandemic, coronavirus, and COVID-19. All words that currently sit at the forefront of everyone's mind.
Talking to business owners locally, they tell me that they're expecting potentially what would be the equivalent of 3 winters, one after the other, just demonstrating the real pressure that they're facing at the moment. So that's an area of particular concern for us as well.
We also had part of my team developing a community spirit of printing farms across South Wales, developing methods using 3D printers in garages, basically printing face visors.
Behind the scenes in terms of the infrastructure that we've had to roll out really quickly across the NHS, giving people access to things like Microsoft Office 365.
Plainly, COVID has impacted the labour market and the economy more broadly at a literally unprecedented scale.
The economic impact has been greater on the UK than most other advanced industrial countries.
We also diversified immediately into producing ethanol-based hand sanitizer, which other distilleries had also been doing, and this whole business took off very rapidly.
It's all looking very, very worrying. Similarly, I've got a friend who runs a business selling school uniforms and imports material from Europe, and it's the uncertainty that is really causing the problems for them because they don't know what the situation is going to be.
Digital runs all the way through all of our recovery programs. So in recent years, we've invested in a new Centre for Digital Public Services, and that has a kind of expert squad kind of approach. So they go to local authorities, to health boards and other public services to better understand what challenges they're facing, but to look for digital solutions to those challenges.
But now that we have started to emerge from lockdowns, and as we have started to get back to some degree of normality, it would seem that now is a good time to look back and reflect on how we have managed the pandemic to date and prepare should there be future waves or should there be a future pandemic.
Digital is a strand that runs through all of our recovery work. So we're investing heavily in supporting the NHS to recover from COVID. And in doing so, some of that investment is about expanding services, but some of it's about changing the way that we deliver services.
The COVID-19 pandemic has obviously had a profound impact on health systems around the world, and Wales is no different from that. Some parts of Wales have had a greater impact than others, particularly in the southeast compared to the southwest. And that's translated into many more patients admitted to hospital, many more patients in intensive care, some for very prolonged periods of time and being profoundly ill. And then sadly, more people dying in hospital, but also dying in their own homes and in the community in care homes.
Though bleak, nobody fully knows what course the economy will take, as we cannot predict how the pandemic will play out. Businesses will have to re-evaluate their strategies and recovery options urgently, and policymakers will need to be prepared to make brave, pioneering decisions based on sustainability. And for all the people of Wales and the world, we can only hope to rise from the ashes that COVID-19 left behind.
COVID-19 has created the worst crisis in education and learning in a century, affecting the lives of students of all ages.
We've got some challenges to face up to during the COVID period, but we've also seen our academic community step up and deliver on an unprecedented scale.
It's, in a sense, the biggest social upheaval in 75 years.
It was a surprise to suddenly find ourselves not delivering the kind of higher education experience and the kind of working environment that we were used to with colleagues.
We were forced to work from home. There wasn't really time to kind of worry or get stressed or even kind of think about how we felt almost.
The students had to adapt to receive a different format.
Swansea University contributed significantly actually during the pandemic.
The resilience and the determination of research teams to still try to do excellent research with impact.
Our medical students almost immediately started emailing to volunteer their help.
I think having the pre-recorded lectures has made the education more accessible because we can watch them when they suit us, rather than turning up to a lecture on time.
International students are a key part of the revenue stream as well for institutions. That has provided and caused a lot of uncertainty in the sector.
I guess in the beginning was a huge downfall on my grades due to not being able to have any motivation.
There's a lot for us to think about in relation to what some do call this new normal way of working, but I'm convinced that many will enjoy being able to carry on with some of the flexibility that we've seen over this period.
Many are left wondering what the future of education will look like. In that respect, learning and teaching might have changed forever. We have tasted the future of education, and it is up to us to study best practices and draw valuable lessons, reflect and make the long-lasting reforms needed for improving our education systems. The future of education can be bright and exciting.
Is healthcare a right or a luxury?
It's a grueling job, emotionally, physically, mentally. Sometimes it feels like a conveyor belt.
Deep breaths.
But healthcare right now is reactive. I mean, that's the sad truth. You know, we wait for stuff to happen. And when it does happen, I mean, usually we're quite good at fixing it. You know, we put the team together, we get it sorted. But it is late. That treatment is often too late.
The National Health Service has come a long way in 70 years.
The NHS has improved the nursing care so much.
Generations of Britons have cherished its care, forgiven its flaws, and still consider it the pinnacle of public service.
We've actually filled our intensive care unit now, above our normal capacity.
So much has had to change, it can never be the same again.
The NHS is our best loved institution, defining the national character like the weather or the landscape. But as it turns 70, is it fit for the future?
Healthcare, a fundamental necessity in society. The maintenance and continued improvement of a population's health, and for many, a lifeline. People are living longer, more and more serious illnesses are being detected quicker, and more treatments discovered. However, with such advancement in the field, it is no wonder that the cost of services continues to rise.
Today, a baby boy born in May Hill is likely to live 15 years less than a baby boy born in Wales, and that's today. It's not historic. And those inequalities are widening.
Even before the pandemic, we needed to transform the NHS in Wales. We had to have a sustainability problem in that we have growing need in the population, growing complex needs in the population.
And I think it's interesting that the actual health of Wales as a society is not as high as it is in the rest of the UK. Wales tends to be poorer and sicker than the rest of the UK.
I think one of the reasons why we have such a high death rate from coronavirus is due to health inequalities across the UK, but particularly you see it in Wales, and the underlying problems that were already there in the country.
Actually, very early on during COVID, in how many companies came forward proactively to the NHS to work directly with them, both at a national macro level and then locally at the GP, the primary care and secondary care level.
Many people think that COVID-19 has created the opportunity to accelerate its implementation, looking through a value-based lens at everything that is done in the NHS and making sure that only things of high value to patients are prioritised in the reset NHS.
So I think there's no doubt in my mind in that sphere, Consultant Connect and other outpatient arrangements, etc., are going to take place in the digital sphere.
We, as the NHS in Wales, have a really large workforce. We're obviously 180,000 workers in the health and social care sector across Wales, and 98,000 of them just in the Welsh NHS.
But it is time now. People have thought about how care can best be delivered. We're seeing video consultations being used by GP practices. We're seeing GPs then actually giving immediate access to consultant specialist advice over a video link, whereas in the past that would require the patient and an actual trip to the hospital, waiting for an appointment with a consultant.
Wales has a history of incorporating and prioritising value-based healthcare at its core, and encourages us to focus also on individual preferences for care and ensure that resources are allocated for maximum value.
The time for value-based healthcare is now. I know Wales have been looking at this for a good number of years. It's been a great interest to Pfizer, and certainly a passion and a topic that I've spoken widely about. I think what we see is the pace of science and innovation is accelerating like never before, which gives us great hope and great optimism that illness, disease of our time will be cured, will be treated, and potentially prevented in the future.
Will we rise to the new challenges? Will we adopt the principles of value-based healthcare? And in doing so, will Wales finally achieve a sustainable healthcare system that Aneurin and Bevan promised?
Well, what a credits list, and what an incredibly powerful documentary. Can I just remind you of the mission of this project? What Georgios set out to achieve. The mission is to communicate research findings, expert opinions, and people's views in the most efficient and balanced manner through high quality documentary films. The aim to develop a collaborative communication and distribution platform for sharing academic research and scientific technological innovation in Wales to a multitude of media outlets and channels within our academic and student community and beyond. that is a mission that has been absolutely achieved. So thank you and enormous credit to you, Georgios, the team, and all of the amazing contributors who we have heard, albeit in that teaser session. Not only is it a basis for reflecting now, but what better way for the historians of the future, Minister, to get a flavour of these crises of today than through a documentary such as the one that we have been seeing. So a documentary for the present, but also I think very much for the future as well. So thank you. And if I may now open the conversation by introducing the people around the screen. I've spent however many months it is living life through Zoom, and I've still no idea how whose faces appear where on the screen happens. So I'm going to take it around my screen, if I may. And Sian, could I ask you to introduce yourself and share any preliminary views that you have?
Thank you, Elwen. So I'm Dr. Sian Rees. I'm the head of the School of Culture and Communication at Swansea University, and have been heading up our academic department of media and communication for some years. We're really delighted actually that Georgios and Nadia have moved into our team in media and communications, and that's within the school that I now run. There's two reasons for that. The documentary that we've seen a teaser for, we've seen a teaser for a series of documentaries that are coming out, really shows that value of communications within the world, the impact it can bring, and the way it can bring research and these troubling issues and challenging issues to life. And encourage us all to not just have a record of what's happening, but encourage us to think. And I think it is that power of the long form documentary, along with other forms of communication, that have that power to cut through that research and to give us that sense of the things we want to be thinking about and to challenge us. And I think it's a record, it's a representation, but it's also a challenge to us too. And I think, you know, that for me is the particular joy, if you like, in this series, which is going to come out over the course of the next few months.
Thank you so much, Sian. And Hamish, it was a pleasure to see you on the screen once or twice. And if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you very much, Elwen. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Hamish Laing, a professor in the School of Management, previously medical director of the local health board, and obviously with a passionate interest in the NHS and social care, and also actually digital inclusion as well. And it's been fantastic to work with Georgios and Nadia and colleagues. I was one of the researchers on the series of documentaries, and it's just been so exciting. I think, you know, across the world, everybody is facing huge challenges at the moment, but there are some distinctive qualities about the challenges in Wales, I think, and so it's great to have a documentary series that's looking very much, bringing an international perspective, but looking very much on the challenges as we face them now here in Wales, and if you like, taking on the big issues, and bringing politicians, members of the public, academics, and business together to share their perspectives, I think makes it all the richer and more powerful. So I've really enjoyed watching the films. I've had the pleasure of seeing some of the full-length films as well, and I would really commend them to people, and look forward to discussing them.
And as I understand it, there will be more to come. You know, this is the first phase of an ongoing project, so that's you know, a really, really powerful message for the future as well. So I'm going to turn, if I may, to the team of the moment, Georgios and Nadia. And I wonder if you would like to introduce yourselves and share some of your reflections at the moment before we turn to the Minister, who's another contributor we saw, and have her further reflection of her contribution there. So Georgios, I don't know if you'll take this first and then hand over to Nadia.
Pleasure. Yes, my name is Georgios. I am a lecturer at the School of Culture and Communication. I've been a filmmaker for more than 30 years. I've been in education for more than 20 years. And I've always felt like that there is a real need for a solid platform to share ideas, especially in the education sector. So it's been an ambition for a long time. I've always felt that other filmmakers, myself included, in the early years of my career, that documentary filmmaking is a creative practice. But over the years, that view has changed. Documentary filmmaking can be a lot more, can be a megaphone of expert views. And what better way than to close a gap between academia, between the university sector, between research projects, to give our researchers a voice, to share their ideas, their expertise, and to ultimately find solutions to create that healthy conversation, to design a better future for everyone. So as I was saying, this has been a long ambition, and approximately 2 years ago, we decided to go ahead with this project to try this experimentation to bridge that gap. It's been a long journey. Fast forwarding 2 years later, we are here. We've just completed the first season, 7 full features. We've been so incredibly fortunate to have been working with so many colleagues. We've made friends along this journey. We've estimated that we've had more than 70 collaborators and contributors, which is again, it's an astonishing number to think about it. And I also think this is only the beginning. We are excited, we are energized, and we would like to carry on better and perhaps a more improved season 2. If we can, of course, we'll give it our best efforts. And again, thank you all so much for your kind words and your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Nadia, you've been very much at the heart of this. Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, it's been very interesting for sure, and definitely a challenge. So hi, I'm Nadia. I was pretty much the main editor. I was working very closely with Georgios to give his idea its form and to bring it to life. What we wanted to achieve was a platform and a very niche platform for researchers to share their ideas. And yeah, I think it turned out pretty well.
And I think lots of other people think it's turned out pretty well, looking at the wonderful list of nominations and awards that appear to be coming in the direction of this wonderful project. So thank you enormously. And Minister, from your perspective, as someone who contributed, and I suspect may well be asked to contribute again into the future, how was the experience?
It was a really good experience, because it's not often you get the chance in the middle of a pandemic and in this kind of role just to sit down for a moment and think about things. So the questions that Georgios was asking me were genuine, things I had to sit down and think about, and you don't get that space at all to think, which I think is a shame, but it's just the reality of when you're working in this kind of fast-moving environment, and particularly in the context of a pandemic. So just having a bit of space to to think about what you're doing and ask questions you know, why making the links to other things I think was really, really useful. So it was a really enjoyable experience, but you're always nervous, you know, what is it going to look like when I go on the screen? And I was watching it, as I always do, just cringing, looking at everyone else thinking, oh, why didn't I look at the camera, and all that sort of the normal stuff that you do when you have to do, you know, the TV and you have to look at yourself. But I was really quite taken with what Hamish said about the distinctive Welsh angle to these challenges. I think that that's one of the reasons why this work is so important, because we've got a specific Welsh story to tell, I think, in these challenging times. So in the course of the pandemic, for example, we've done things very differently on some occasions. You know, when it's been right for Wales, we've taken the same approach as elsewhere in the UK, but then other times we've done things differently. The test, trace, protect system is one which really stands out for me. So, you know, across the border, we've seen these giant contracts go to private firms, whereas here in Wales, we decided a public service-led model was the right one. So here in Wales, it was the council, it was the healthcare workers and others who were calling people and tracing the contacts and so on. And it performed really, really well. And I think there was something Welsh about that, in the sense that when you've got someone local calling you from a, you know, your local council or your local health board, there's that more natural element of trust, rather than when somebody's calling you from a private company, asking you what are quite personal questions in terms of who you've had contact with in, you know, in the recent days. And our system performed really, really well at a fraction of the price. And I think that that is a story, you know, that deserves to be told, as does our approach to PPE. So when we were, you know, right at the start of the pandemic, really struggling, we saw firms actually not far from where I am now in Swansea changing their business from making flags to making scrubs. And that just kind of national effort of seeing what individuals and what their businesses can contribute was fantastic. We saw Gower Gin on the video, and I know that they changed their production from making very excellent gin to making hand gel and so on. So you know, it's just all that kind of Welsh national effort all pulling together. And the FM said in his contribution when he was delivering one of his addresses that we'll get through this together, and I think that that's what we did, and it's what we still need to keep doing as well. And there's, you know, particular elements to Brexit in terms of Wales. We have you know, particular sectors which are more exposed. The Welsh lamb and beef sector, our seafood sector, parts of our manufacturing businesses are probably you could argue more exposed than elsewhere. So that's a Welsh story that needs to be told as well. And then on healthcare, you know, the NHS was born here in Wales. We had Julian Tudor Hart and his inverse care law, and now we've got all the new thinking about the ways forward for digital healthcare. And of course, we've had prudent healthcare, which the FM was very passionate about in his time in post in the health portfolio. So absolutely, you know, we need to have these Welsh stories told, and I'm just really grateful that this is the way in which they're being done, in a you know, in a fair, evidence-based way, gathering evidence from people who've been involved in all kinds of ways, be it designing the policy, delivering the policy, or being somebody who's a recipient of the result of that. So it's just such valuable work.
Thank you very much indeed. So having seen yourself today on the screen, were you, I don't think anyone's ever pleased on how they look on the screen, but were you content that it captured what you were seeking to share?
Yes, definitely. No complaints about the content, only my own only my own looking at the camera performance.
And Hamish and Sian, were you both also content with your contributions?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't get quite a starring role as Hamish in the training, but yeah, I think what the series does actually is capture people very, very naturally. And yes. I, you know, yes. Rebecca, you really highlighted there you know, what's great about this form of documentary making is that collecting together of the different views and different perspectives. And you know, I think this has achieved that in a very natural and a very effective way, and that's through a huge amount of editing behind the scenes, and that has worked. So yeah, I'm happy. Thank you, Georgios, with how you represented me. But I'm perhaps more delighted, I think, with that ability to pull that together, to be the place of record, but also to be that place of challenge, which I mentioned earlier, which I think does get us thinking, doesn't it, about these issues. And I think, you know, the video format can reach people perhaps in a way that sometimes other mediums don't. You know, we do great research here, we publish it in our sort of academic way, but this allows us to bring impact and actually to bring this research to other people, and also to get, you know, the whole nation thinking about this, you know, in all of our different areas, whether that's public sector or business or members of the public. And I think, you know, that for me is a great achievement here.
And Hamish, one of the great joys of my coming into my new role in the university has been getting to work with you. And, you know, I know you in all sorts of contexts with all sorts of wondrous skills and abilities. I'm now also seeing you in another role as a film star in the making. So how do you feel reflecting back on the contributions we've seen today? Do you feel that comfortably captures some of the views that you wanted to impart?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I will ever be a film star. I would say, however, that I'm obviously very comfortable in an operating theatre, and being in a recording theatre is a very different experience. And actually, you know, all credit to Georgios for making us all, I think, feel very comfortable and at ease as we did our work. His manner is fantastic. And poor old Nadia, he had Nadia and I traipsing over sand dunes on a rather gusty day, and even that didn't seem too bad. So I think the films, I really do think they've got to the heart of some of the big issues. And just to pick up on another distinctive kind of Welsh point, and I guess I would say this as the director of the academy, but you know, value-based health and care is another thing that Wales is leading the world on. The World Economic Forum have just allocated or designated global innovator hubs for value-based health and care. Wales is one of those first hubs. It's the only country in the world the World Economic Forum have recognised for the leading work that's going on. And we saw in the teaser, my colleague Sally Lewis and Tom Kelly, you know, both of whom have been really instrumental of driving what is a part of the prudent healthcare policy that the First Minister's. He told me it wasn't a policy; it was a social movement, actually. But it's how do you implement prudent healthcare? Well, through value-based healthcare is the answer. So, very pleased to see that. Fantastic to see our collaborating partners in Pfizer. You know, Ben Osborne, the chief executive of the UK branch of the world's biggest biopharmaceutical company, giving up time in the, you know, and that was in the middle of the pandemic when I know he was getting calls from certainly colleagues in NHS England, like hourly, to find time to make this, because he thinks it was so important, and he wanted to show the commitment to the partnership with the university, as well as a commitment to the things he was talking about. So, you know, fantastic. And people have done it because it's of such high quality, because the subjects are so important, and because there are interesting things to say about them. And as you alluded to, Elwen, there are many other big issues facing us. Brexit and COVID may be the two big ones at the moment, but there are many more, and it would be great to get more into some of those. Minister, you talked about the inverse care law. In fact, we celebrated, if that's the right word, we celebrated Julian Tudor-Hart, not the inverse care law. We celebrated Julian Tudor-Hart. It was 50 years old, the inverse care law, in February this year. And in fact, colleagues in the medical students, actually, along with Camilla Hawthorne, who we saw in the film, put on a fantastic symposium about it. And there is a real risk of us having a digital inverse care law if we're not careful. And so that whole digital inclusion, getting everybody who wants to be online, so we don't leave behind of actually are the same people will be really important. So there are many more burning topics. It would be brilliant to get into, but I think what's been covered so far has been done very well, very professionally, and it's a great resource for the university.
Yes.
And a chance to put the university on the world stage, actually. Yeah. So very excited.
And I think a great resource for Wales as well, actually. I think a lot of what we saw captured the Welshness of some of the messaging very powerfully and very effectively. So thank you enormously. Georgios, there are some housekeeping matters that I think we need to share. I'm going to run through them and you listen to me carefully and correct me if I get anything wrong. So this is the soft launch, and we are all enormously looking forward to, I'm not sure if the opposite of a soft launch is a hard launch, but I think it's a physical launch or an in-person launch or a let's all get together and be in-person launch. And we're hoping, again, of course, subject to how things are, that may be late October, early November. And of course, all of you will be very warmly welcome to that launch event. So please, when you get the invitations, put them in your diary. There will, of course, be future events with the gradual releases now of the first season. I think there are 7 full episodes, and they will be gradually released. Now we've had the soft launch through a series of webinars, seminars, forums, and so forth. So this is the start of an ongoing dialogue. And again, we'll be greatly looking forward to you and other colleagues as we reach out, joining us in that. There is an open call, an invitation to our academic and student community to get involved with this research project if they wish. And so please, of course, if you wish to do so, contact Georgios. He has been fighting a totally losing battle with me because I am one of those people who just can't bear to see themselves recorded. So I come up with all sorts of wonderful excuses as to why I can't engage in it in any way. I haven't got anything worth saying to say, but I know there are people out there with very important messages, views, contributions to share and make. So please join us, join Georgios and Nadia, Sian and her team on this journey. And there is a website, which is www.welshaffairs.com, which is going live. Even I can remember that website address. This is the Welsh Affairs series, and so it is the Welsh Affairs. You've done very well to get that web address, actually, Georgios. I'm really impressed by that in itself. I'm sure there are others who, had they thought about it, might have wanted to get in before you, but fabulously done. Have I got the housekeeping right? And what would you want to contribute further to that, Georgios?
You got everything right.
Unusual, I know.
Apart from what you said, not wishing to be on record on camera, this will happen. No, you're absolutely right. Thank you again. All I'm going to say is that Nadia and I would not be able to complete the documentary films had it not been for the amazing support and collaboration of so many people, including our panel today. Thank you all so much. We're really grateful.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody. Those who know me from court know that I'm hopeless to keeping to time. So it is entirely accidental that it happens to be 5 o'clock. Thank you very, very much indeed. I look forward to engaging with this over the years to come. I think it's fantastic. And thank you so much, all of you, for joining us, panelists, the participants, And in particular, if I may, Minister, we really, really do value your time, your commitment, your contribution, and all the work that you do on behalf of the people of Wales, whatever anyone's politics, whatever one's view of politics, the commitment of politicians is absolutely awesome. So thank you, and have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the weather, if you can fight your way through the crowds who are going to be also enjoying the weather with us. Bye all, thank you so much.